Hey guys, here we are. It's August the 29th, 2025, and you are watching some wrestling content on a wrestling YouTube channel. I'm, of course, Billy, and you guys have been asking me for a while to do some additional content for the YouTube channel. So here we are. No notes, no script, no talking points. I'm just going to freestyle through, and I'm the best in the world at doing this. That's why I can do it. I've seen a lot of very bang average content creators, even some that have rode my coattails for many years, now doing content and making money from content. So why shouldn't the best sit down and produce some wrestling content from time to time? If this is successful, I'm going to do it more often. If the views are shit, then this is going to be very much a one-off. So as I said, this is just wrestling content. It's not looking forward to a pay-per-view, even though Clash in Paris is a couple of days away. We're not looking back and reviewing anything. We're not reviewing a pay-per-view. We're not reviewing Raw or SmackDown. This isn't a wrestling informer, so don't expect a load of news. This isn't a wrestling therapy. This isn't even a data sheet special. This is me looking around at the landscape, looking at very average or poor content creators making money from wrestling content. We're looking at these shills as well, these horrendous content creators like Denise and others who are just simply saying exactly what certain organizations want them to say. They're acting, they're putting on performances for the camera, overreacting to things that are happening in wrestling in what has been, quite frankly, quite a poor wrestling year. I've said previously that I put this year among one of the worst. And if you're watching it individually with no preconceived expectations coming in, so forget about the fact that you knew the Netflix deal was a massive deal and you raised your expectations because of it, like we all did, then this wouldn't be a terrible year. We've had some decent matches. We've had okay reasons to get to those matches, and I would say okay at best. But overall, it hasn't been incredibly unwatchable like other years. But then when you consider those expectations, when you consider the magnitude of the deals that WWE have done, when you look at ticket pricing, when you look at the social media numbers that this product is doing, when you look at the stock prices, share prices, you would be forgiven for thinking that this was going to be an unbelievable year of wrestling. But it simply hasn't been that. So when you look at expectations versus reality, this for me has been one of the worst years of all time. And as I said, if you watch 1993, 1995, 1996, 2011, 2019, 2020, years off the top of my head that I think were really bad for wrestling, I actually think 93 is quite good, actually, to watch back nostalgically, because I remember that being the year where I didn't have to borrow tapes from people. Up till 93, I relied on friends to record me things because my dad just simply wouldn't buy Sky, which is was the carrier of WWE, WWF in the UK at the time. It wasn't down to money. He had loads of money. He just wouldn't buy it. He just wouldn't invest in Sky. He actually looked in 1992. He invested in an illegal way to get Sky. Before we had the Fire Sticks, they had the dodgy cards, and we put the card in, and we had some wrestling from between SummerSlam to Survivor Series, and then the cards got blocked. And even he then felt it was unfair to get our hopes up at this juncture, and then got the real Sky at the start of 93. So 93 for me, nostalgia-wise, is a fun year because it was the first year I could ever just come downstairs, put the TV on and watch wrestling. And I would just consume it to death. I would consume the repeats of things that I watched already. So I think I saw the 1, 2, 3 Kid pin Razor Ramon about 5 or 6 times in a single week. And then the replays that followed the following week as they were building up towards that rematch as well, where Razor was offering him the money. Hey, Chico, $2,500, $5,000, $10,000, man. Which he eventually took and stole that bag of money. But yeah, so I feel bad putting 93 in, but I know objectively it's not a good year if we send that across to the wider landscape of the fan base who even watched at that time. Obviously, you have these newer fans who are watching the product now, and they think everything they see now is fine because they don't have the standards that were set by the Hogan era or the Attitude era or anything like that, and they just feel that whacking on a load of pointless matches is absolutely fine. And this product historically will recycle. Ideas will be recycled. We don't just see that in wrestling. Wrestling's not solely to blame for that. We can see that in movies as well. Some of the most successful movies in this day and age are simply just reboots. We've just had Superman for about the 5th or 6th time in my lifetime just go into the cinema again with another reboot. So everybody across the board is running out of ideas. It's not just wrestling that will need to recycle its best ideas, but at the moment, it really, really does feel rusty. It really, really does feel stale. It really does feel difficult to watch without distracting yourself. Either, for me, it's my Peloton, or I watch it sometimes at the gym. I watch it on walks to get my steps in. If I'm watching it at home, I need to order food, or I need to be distracted by my phone. I'll work through it. I won't sit there and digest pro wrestling, directly concentrating on the pro wrestling, because the reason for the matches that they just churn out on TV do not justify my time and my full concentration to that extent. It's just how it is. And it's a bad year, as I said. And it's heightened by the fact that you're trying to take so much money from people. And it's heightened by the fact that we just had 2 or 3 really good years. And you cannot overlook the significance of the peak of the Bloodline story and us now moving away from that. You cannot undermine that whatsoever. So one of the reasons that I will defend why it could be potentially so difficult to make this product better, and why they cannot give us engaging storylines that therefore lead to more engaging matches, would possibly be because we are still dealing with, and we are going to deal with for a long time, a cancel culture audience. Now, Donald Trump winning the election in the US was good when it came to watering down cancel culture overall in the media, when it came to freedom of speech on social media platforms and whatnot, and generally putting stuff in the rearview mirror when it came to the overemphasis on transgenderism, the overemphasis on Black Lives Matter, equal opportunities, or overemphasizing what equal opportunities are, and meeting diversity quotas and whatnot. I think a lot of that stuff has been reduced. But what you have when you factor in a wrestling audience, specifically that vocal minority who are on social media but are not buying the tickets. So this was very important. This is why I was hoping that bringing in Brock Lesnar was a shift for the WWE, because what you recognize is that your ticket buyers, they are not libtards. They are not sitting there complaining about everything on their keyboards. They're not these weak liberal pussies who sit online and cry about anything with their rainbow coloured hair, that they dyed that colour because they were just looking for something to stand out. Have you ever seen anybody successful, other than if they come from generational wealth, with green, yellow, blue or pink hair? This is a cry for help most of the time. Most of the time, these people are unhealthy, overweight, losers of society that have nothing to live for, and basically just cling on to doing something that makes them stand out, doing something that makes them relevant. And you'll often find that they are these fatties with low income jobs, not a lot of relevance. They then decide to colour their hair. They end up becoming liberal. A lot of these people sort of navigate towards pro wrestling, and they are the ones who mainly have the voices on social media. And they usually echo the voices of the wrestling media. And the wrestling media too, whilst not being these fat, rainbow-haired liberal losers, are often people who were losers, and still are losers, by the way, but were losers when they were growing up. And suddenly they found a voice. They became a wrestling journalist, and they sat there and they were able to cultivate a following online. And it's the first time in their sad, shitty little lives that anybody would actually listen to them. And suddenly they feel a sense of power. They feel a sense of ego. They get that little boost because they have followers, and then they decide to dictate to these people who aren't quite as smart as them when it comes to developing followers. So they're all losers, but some losers are more clued up and more intelligent than others. So the clever losers inspire the fat rainbow-haired lib losers, and then they sort of cling on to their opinions, and their opinions are going to be liberal. Their opponents are going to be wanting to cancel everything that doesn't fit in with their narratives, and their opinion is also going to be that everybody is guilty until proven innocent. So you're guilty immediately. Velveteen Dream is guilty. Enzo Amore is guilty. Vince is guilty. Brock Lesnar is guilty. These morons were even getting on to all the people who attended Vince McMahon's 80th birthday recently. Vince McMahon recently had his 80th birthday. Let me just take a drink quickly. It's a lot to do when you talk on your own without anybody going back and forth with you. Vince McMahon had his 80th birthday recently, and these cucks, these lib losers, they singled out every single person that was there and criticized every single individual for going. Now, my thoughts on the Janelle Grant lawsuit and whatnot are clear. I'll summarize them here. She's a whore. She was a whore for hire. She sold herself and her services. It was a two-way street when it came to what they were both doing. Would I do what Vince did? No. Do I necessarily agree with it? No. But he wanted a service, and that service was for sale. And she sold the service, and she got everything she wanted out of that deal. If there was a price to be shit on, he met that price, and he shit on her, and she was fine with that because the deal was already negotiated. The whole situation with Brock Lesnar, for her to be offered up to Brock Lesnar in the way that she was, she agreed to that, and nothing was done without her being financially compensated. She gave him her price, and he paid it. Like Ted DiBiase said, everybody's got a price. We knew her price. She was a whore, and she sold herself to Vince McMahon. He made the purchase. He purchased every individual service that she provided. And that, for me, is a fair and transactional situation. And there's nothing that Vince McMahon needs to be on trial for, in my opinion. If you are sitting there and you are one of these libtards who just hate watching me, you might have a different opinion. Couldn't give a fuck. This is mine. And this, for me, is purely transactional. And that's what the evidence should say as well. So just because this man has fetishes and he got involved in a transaction, what am I trying to say here? Just because he got involved in what was a transactional, mutually agreed relationship between two consenting adults. Consenting was the word I was searching for. Consensual, that was the word I was looking for. Just because he got involved in a consensual situation, which was transactional, doesn't mean that anybody should boycott his 80th birthday if they had a positive relationship with this guy. And who wouldn't? He's put fucking bread on your table. He's put roofs over your heads. There are a lot of people who will be grateful to Vince McMahon for the situations that they are in. You, if you're watching this, you are clearly a wrestling fan, and you should be grateful to Vince McMahon and to Hulk Hogan, who also took a lot of shit in recent weeks, for the very fact that you even have something to watch, because you could be solely streaming this. This might not even be on free television for you. If the territories had stayed as they were, wrestling would have faded out. It would have come well behind all the technological advances. It would have faded into the background, because ultimately everybody would have worked out it was a fixed sport. The whole glitz and glamour side of it, which WWE brought through with Hogan, led by Vince McMahon, none of that would have come to the forefront. None of that would have been mainstream, and you'd have had nothing to watch. It may have existed on an independent level, and it may have made its way to streaming platforms where you could have bought it on Triller or whatever for $9.99 a show, but that would have been it. It wouldn't have been something that's watched by millions or even billions, according to the WWE, across the world. So you could thank Vince for that, and people are thankful to him for that. And some are even thankful for the roofs they have over their heads, and they give thanks by going to his 80th birthday. That's completely fine, and no cancel culture morons are going to make me feel any differently about that. So moving forward with something else I want to touch on. Where is WWE business actually at? Because obviously we spoke about the top of the show where 2025 had a lot of expectations. Ticket prices are really high, and that would indicate that the product is booming. And it's certainly successful, but I wouldn't say it's booming at the same level it was in 2024. Those sellouts aren't quite selling out at the same level. The merch sales aren't quite the same. The pre-sales for WrestleMania 42, which are already going on, are a fraction of what they were for WrestleMania 41. And this may come down to the fact that people are now wise to the overpricing. They're now wise to the waiting game, which I've openly spoken about on a number of podcasts over the years, where if you wait until the last minute, tickets will drop because WWE don't want a half-empty stadium. And I've always implemented that strategy myself, and maybe more people are wise to it, or maybe people are just at this point sick and tired of the prices, and they don't think it's worth it based on the product that you're seeing on TV, which is very, very stale. I can give you multiple examples of multiple people who have been booked incorrectly, storylines that didn't reach their summit, things that didn't make sense, people who are on TV and off TV for a number of weeks, secondary belts that never make their way to PLEs. There's loads of nitpicky wrestling bubble shit that I could talk about here, but I can do that another time, because obviously we don't know how often I'm going to sit here and do these shows. As I said, if it's successful, I'll come on all the time and I'll talk about all kinds of small nitpicky shit. But I want to talk about the big stuff. I want to talk about this business overview as to where this company are at. I'm going to use two podcasts, and I've worked for both of them, as an example of where they both think the company are at and why both are wrong. This is really good protein, by the way. It's 27 grams of protein with 13 grams of carbs, which is good in the UK. But when you get to the US, you're getting those 40 grams of protein cartons with about 2 grams of carbs. Unbelievable. I don't know why they can't get that over here. It's got to be something with the health labels, and the fact that the US can somehow get that over the line and the UK can't, and we're a little bit more strict with our protein intake, or what constitutes protein intake. And yeah, I don't care. I was quite enjoying on my fitness app being able to add 40 grams of solid protein from a single shake, and getting nowhere near my carb allowance through these shakes. And I was having about 3 or 4 of these cartons a day. They're expensive though. $5-6 per carton on protein is quite a lot. But that one tastes good, by the way, if you're in the UK. Where are we at? So yeah, I want to talk about how two different podcasts see things completely differently, and I've worked for both. So you've got Keeping It 100 and you've got Vince Russo. So I'm cool with Vince, but I'm also honest. about everything. And I think that is why people continue to watch me, continue to use me. But at the same time, it can lead to some falling outs because people want you to sugarcoat everything about them. People don't want you to say anything bad about them. People don't want you to be honest in any way. But I truly feel that with Vince McMahon gone, that Mr. Russo genuinely felt like there would have been some opening for him to be, at the very least, a consultant with the WWE. I felt like Russo felt like that he would be consulted because Russo, whether you like it or not, whether you're a fan of his or not, he was instrumental in Triple H becoming Triple H. The transition from Hunter Hearst Helmsley to Triple H was mainly under the guidance of Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara, who were the head writers at the time. So with Triple H in charge and quite clearly struggling creatively at the moment, particularly since the Bloodline thing has faded out, and that was definitely carrying WWE for a long time, I think Vince feels entitled to a phone call from Triple H. And that hasn't happened. And I feel that has led to resent from Vince Russo. And when you're resentful towards something, you can only really hate watch it. And I agree with Vince that this is not a good product right now. I agree that a lot of times they put on a TV show and it is just a complete waste of time. But when you're doing a podcast, you have to have some sense of balance. And the fact that he has never, ever praised anything that the company have done this year or last, or even praised them during the Bloodline times, means that he is simply hate watching this product. And Vince Russo is no longer, and I don't think he ever was, a balanced podcaster when it comes to the WWE. He's more right than wrong. I would say he's 70-30 right about what he says with this product. But unless you can hit that 30%, unless you can actually acknowledge that 30% of the time this product is good, and they do the right things, and they do lead you to buy, they do make you want to buy tickets for certain things. And I bought tickets to WrestleMania. I bought into the Cena heel turn. I bought tickets to SummerSlam. I was interested in a number of things going on there. And SummerSlam for me is more automatic because I'm always looking for a summer holiday, and I may as well tie in wrestling with it. Something that me and my son can still enjoy. And if you have kids, as they get older, you'll realize that as they become teenagers and as they navigate towards being men, there's less stuff they want to do with you. So there's less soccer matches we'll watch together. There's less soccer matches that we'll go to, yes, but there's even less soccer matches we'll watch together. We literally don't sit down and watch a lot of soccer games together. He's more interested in being online with 4 or 5 of his friends and gaming, and all being on the headset together, or going outside. To give it to his credit, he does go outside and does play some sports, which I'm fine with. Not really happy with the gaming side of things, but we don't watch a lot of sport together. He's tried to get into UFC, he's not into boxing, can't get him into the NFL. So wrestling is the forever present. Wrestling is the one that's been there since he was 2 years old. So we're now looking at 12 years together for wrestling. And a whole load of pay-per-views that we've attended together, multiple WrestleManias, multiple SummerSlams. We've been to a Money in the Bank, been to a Survivor Series. So SummerSlam has become our 100% go-to. We won't even look at the card. We'll usually go. So Russo needs to give credit to the fact that occasionally, and I would say 30% of the time, they get it right. 30% of what you see, I think, on most of the time on an episode of SmackDown or Raw is good. And if they were doing a 1 hour show still, then WWE could cut parts out of that show and they could do an incredible 1 hour show. And with commercials, that would only be 47 minutes. And that would be a really good 47 minutes. So you can't say that they're selling these tickets out accidentally, because they're not. And Russo doesn't acknowledge that. Then you've got K100, who love everything that the WWE do. They are in line with everything. They think their numbers are amazing. They think their business is amazing. They don't really, in their defense, they don't really say all the storylines are right, or all the matches are great, or all the PLEs are great. But as far as they're concerned, this is an untouchable business model that's printing money. And your objectivity is going to be even more reduced with Conan being involved with AAA, and AAA now being purchased by the WWE. That's going to make you even less objective. So that's not an objective podcast, and Vince Russo is definitely not an objective podcast. But you got one side telling you that it's awful, which it isn't, because it can't be, because they're doing too well. And you've got one side telling you that it's perfect, because it's not, because they've stopped doing so well. So the truth lies somewhere in between the two. And the truth for me is this: business is on a downward trajectory right now as far as ticket sales go. And you can point to deals and you can point to social media, but I know from social media metrics that if you are getting a lot of clicks and views from countries like India, that's a very difficult thing to monetize. And we do get that here because we started off on Sportskeeda. I started off on Sportskeeda before I created a YouTube channel. So I know that to be true. Some of you watching are worthless, and that's just how it is. No disrespect, but that's just how things are done. So with the WWE at the moment, and with them continuing to do these deals, I still feel that we're at the point where this bubble is going to burst. And the main indicator that I have for that is the fact that Netflix did not come in for the PLEs. And I know, I have inside knowledge, and I know that the expectation was that Netflix were going to come in, and that WWE would have a similar deal to what they have in Europe, where everything's on Netflix, and WWE would then simply have a home with Netflix, and they would be there for the next 10 years. Netflix didn't come in for the PLEs. They've ended up on ESPN. And with those PLEs being on ESPN, that kind of makes you question as to whether Netflix are going to continue on with this past the 5-year mark when they can end. Now, up until 5 years, everything is set. I've seen Sean Ross Sapp at the moment. He's not getting a lot of news, is he? And he's resorted to just making up shit. This is what happens when you are a fraudulent so-called journalist and you need to hit a quota, when you put things behind a paywall, when you have no business having a paywall, and he puts things behind a paywall, so he has to hit a quota, has to hit a number of stories, and he just resorts to making them up. I've caught him making up a load of things over the past year. And one of the things he made up was that WWE in negotiations for a second season of Unreal. Unreal is an automatic. Unreal is already something that has to happen as part of this original deal. Raw, along with a documentary series, which has now been named Unreal, was always part of the deal. Unless Unreal is massively unsuccessful, overly controversial via the pushback, and we talked about these trolls earlier on, this vocal minority, unless it's massively unsuccessful or there's huge pushback, that would be a reason for Netflix to pull the plug. But at the moment, it's Netflix's entitlement to get a second season, and that second season is already being filmed. So this guy is full of shit, but that's going to happen when you're absolutely desperate and in need of clicks and a need to justify the fact you charge for something. In his case, it's inside information, and he has an absolute distinct lack of inside information. Nobody's talking to Sapp. Nobody's talking to Dave. Just look at these people. Are they the type of guys that you want to socialize with? Are these the type of guys you want to go for a beer with? Are these cool guys where you want to risk your job and financial future, your generational wealth, by talking to any of these drips? Do you want to talk to these dopes and risk your financial future? No, is the answer for that. If you want to say the same thing about me, you can do, but I have for a long time partied with these guys, met up with them in the UK from a club promoting job. I arranged a lot of things for these guys to do, things for them to go to, along with introducing them to other people that did other things, which I'm not going to talk about. And I have had a significant relationship with a number of these wrestlers and other people. Don't forget, I've also worked for the WWE. When I left Big Brother, I had a relationship with the WWE after that. My agency was the same agency who ran the WWE's PR in the UK. That was the agency that took me on, along with another bunch of Big Brother housemates. I've wrestled in British wrestling with a number of guys who are now working in the WWE. So my links are solid. My friendships are sound. And there are people who will always talk to me, always drink with me, always eat with me, always go to the gym with me. So I'm not Sean Ross Sapp. But if you think Sean Ross Sapp is a cool guy, or Dave Meltzer's a cool guy that people are going to just willingly give information to, that's on you more than it's on me. So, yeah, so he was completely wrong about that story about Unreal. But the WWE are under some pressure, as far as I'm concerned, to improve these ratings and to improve this product if they're looking to stay with Netflix beyond the 5 years. But until that point, WWE have a long time to fix it, because the next 4 years, 4 and a bit years we've got left, are concrete. But it would be concerning to me that they didn't come to the negotiating table. Now, the benefits of going to ESPN is this is another company who will now data collect for the WWE. Now, there are pros and cons to this. The pros are just that. This is another company you're in bed with. This is a new company you've got a relationship with. And it's a whole new audience. And it's a whole new group of people collecting your data. So if people subscribe to something on ESPN, the same way that... so we have this relationship with TKO. TKO obviously have the UFC as well. I purchased a signed item from Fanatics, a Roman Reigns item for my son that he wanted. I purchased a trading card for my son. I am now inundated with UFC emails for UFC signed memorabilia. I never purchased anything from the UFC, but the way my data was collected and shared with within the partners of the WWE, which would be UFC because they're a part of the TKO umbrella, I am now being inundated with UFC signed memorabilia, and that is how this works. The more people that you are in bed with, the more people who you are sharing data with, the more people that are going to go out there and bat for you, and the more eyes you're going to end up with the WWE. It's no surprise to me that they are selling out town after town, because it's impossible if you live in a certain town to not know the WWE are coming to town. And with a reduction in household businesses, sometimes when WWE come to a certain town, it's your only opportunity to see WWE that year, hence the higher ticket pricing. Everything to me, unlike keeping it 100, unlike Vince Russo, makes sense. So I can keep balance and I can see what's going right and what's going wrong. And here's the problem with what could go wrong. Fox were very, very underwhelmed with their deal with the WWE. Very, very underwhelmed. That is well known among those people in the television industry. The TV industry know that Fox was very underwhelmed with the WWE. They were underwhelmed by the availability of certain people that they said would be available. We're talking about legends. We're talking about Brock. We're talking about Roman Reigns. We're talking about Bray Wyatt. Fox were very underwhelmed by the talent pool. They were underwhelmed by the numbers. They were underwhelmed by the willingness to buy advertising during wrestling. And they were underwhelmed with how social media metrics, which WWE used to negotiate, translated into actual viewership for the TV product. Fox found their relationship with WWE to be a negative one, and they thought it was very underwhelming, and they were not interested at all in continuing it on, and will probably never return to the negotiating table again. Now, let's say you burn your bridge with Netflix. Let's say you piss off NBC and Peacock because they're no longer there. Let's say that, well, they are with Saturday night's main event, of course. Let's say that you do piss off Netflix, and let's say ESPN are underwhelmed as well. That means in the next 5 years, looking ahead to 2030, you've blown through all of your goodwill with every single one of these potential partners. All of them have seen you come to the negotiating table. They've seen you say you're going to do this. They've seen you say you're going to do that. They've seen your numbers. They've seen your metrics. They've heard your promises, and you've underdelivered for every single one of them. What position is that going to leave WWE in 2030? Does that mean that K100 are correct when it comes to WWE just firing on all cylinders and being this successful, unstoppable machine? No, it doesn't, because WWE are slowly, or TKO are slowly cashing in all their chips very, very early into this partnership. And you have a massive debt to recuperate because this company was bought with debt. It also doesn't make Vince Russo right either, because the fact that they are able to deliver these numbers, the fact they're able to get these deals over the line, the fact that they have time on their side, they do have 4 years to improve this product. They have 4 years to not be in a situation that they were in with Fox and show all of these partners that we are worth reinvesting in. That means that WWE are still in quite a solid position, and the share prices are always a reflection of that. But the truth lies somewhere in the middle of the two. And if we look at the outside option, if everything was to go wrong here and WWE did end up pissing off their partners, I also feel that you have the parachute plan of selling this company to the Saudis, and that could even potentially lead to Vince McMahon being re-involved with the WWE. Now, I don't think that would take as long as 5 years. You would have a clear idea as to whether you were doing well on Netflix or whether you were doing well on ESPN well before 5 years. It would probably only be a couple. And obviously a lot of this would mean that Vince McMahon would need to remain alive and would need to at least still have his faculties about him. And we saw him in the Hulk Hogan documentary. He didn't look great, but he was still coherent, and a lot of the stuff he said was correct and made sense. So that could happen, or they could just do it without Vince. The Saudis obviously want this, and they could just do it all without Vince, and they could just take over the WWE independently and find their own people. They may even just hand it over to a Dana White to run and say, hey, what can you do with wrestling? I don't know the answers. But what I do know is that this isn't just unanimously a thriving, successful business that's untouchable, whilst at the same time, it's not the pile of shit that Vince Russo will tell you that it is. So be mindful of that. I've gone quite long here. I haven't really had time to discuss product specifics. Haven't gone into this superstar or that superstar, or Triple H's booking, or even the feud with the Rock and all the stuff I think people want to hear about. But yeah, we've got plenty of other shows to do. I can do this twice a week if you guys support it. So yeah, try and watch this, try and share it, try and tell people that I'm back doing content. I'm going to dedicate myself to it, a couple of videos, a couple of podcasts a week, because I'm better than the other people that are doing it. They are shit. They are making money for it as well now. And as I said, when you look at people who have basically been riding my coattails doing this, when you look at people who are trying to copy my way of doing things, when you look at people who have news which is nowhere near as accurate as mine, when I have the real insider information, still do, all you need to do is go to thedirtysheets.com and see I'm still the #1 source for wrestling news. A lot of my stories are being picked up by Steve Carrier on Ringside News. I have an offer there to do video content for them, but before I go down the path of another Wrestle Zone, another Sports Keeda, another Wrestling Inc., let's just try and post some content on the YouTube channel. If JD from New York can do it, I sure as shit can do it, and build up a following. So let's see how this goes, and hopefully it goes well, and hopefully I see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.